And welcome back to the Rogues Guild. I have another deck profile for you. This is Derek Mugoneza. He is one of our elite rogue fighters. He was one of the three that was on Operation Get Cal the invite, and he successfully got to the top, bodied some people along the way, played Violet. I will turn it over to Derek to talk about his list.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Yeah, so again, this is the third time I've been playing this list for this meta. It's been a lot of fun, honestly. And I know like a lot of people that know me, I'm not typically what one would call a red player, so to speak. Um, so like when you see Violet, this ruler, she's a red ruler, but the play style, it's very it's like opposite of like a typical red deck, with her
It
ability to
is.
pay
It is.
pay one colorless and then you get to draw a discard. What red deck do you know of is drawing cards?
The
You
only
know?
part of this deck that is red is the win con. Like that is like
Exactly.
literally it's like
Exactly.
I'm gonna like be this other deck, but then like I'll win on red though. Like
Yep, yep, exactly. Back if anybody remembers back in the day of when the rulers had first came out and we had Kane, one of the first red rulers that would just judgment. You'd like slam a bunch of regalia, and you would judgment and attack and attack and attack and yeah, like it kind of reminds me of back in those days. Except now you're doing this all in one turn because these atoms that Violet is discarding have all these powerful effects, and she herself has a powerful effect of being able to pump herself, give herself flying, give herself precision, swiftness, all these great effects. And I'll kind of like just walk through the deck as we're going. So as I mentioned, the ruler's Violet has a great ability, pay one colorless. That's any color will, and you get to draw, discard a card. Um, the first card on the list, very probably the most important card in the entire deck, Heart to Heart. Well, it's Maribel the Sincere Engineers slash Heart to Heart. So these are split cards, so they have two different. You can either
mhm.
play them as a resonator or you can play them as a chant. The chant portion is the one that we care about the most. So the chant portion allows us to draw a card and exile it from the game, and then while it's in the removed area, we get to play our first ruler activate ability for free. So that means instead of paying one every single time I want to use Violet, I get to pay one, draw a card, remove Heart to Heart, and then for the rest of the game, or as long as that card is removed from the game, I get to draw and discard for free,
Yeah.
which is
One filter every
absolutely
turn.
insane.
And these
And yeah, and
filters have effects. Like,
yes,
so
yes, yeah,
broken.
and Violet's on both players' turn, which was something that actually threw me for a loop because
Yeah.
one thing that I've noticed with Force was that we don't typically like to have these effects that are like on both players' turn. So
Yeah.
when I first saw this, I was like, oh, maybe the atoms, they'll be kind of dumbed down, and some of them are, like they make sense for atom effects. But then when you think about it, you have so many different atoms to choose from. That's when things get kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But we'll get to those in a minute. So the next most important card in the deck is your primary. Yeah, I'd say it's your primary win con. I'd say the ruler is secondary. There's not too often that we want to just judgment, discard a bunch of cards, giving her a bunch of stats, and then swinging for lethal.
Yeah,
Mainly
your
because
opponent really just
you run out of
has to
hand.
your opponent has
Yeah.
to open himself up for that, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's not
Your opponent either
some
has to open themselves up, or you need to be like going second and then hit the six sage stone and then a certain amount of atoms. And
Mhm.
then sure, it's like, all right, well, you have no response to this. Discard Brave Force, the green red atom, ditch three more, and now you're dead, type of thing. But that seldom comes up. It's kind of like a secondary option. Our main meat and potatoes, Atomic Bahamut, where so this is the one that we get to exile five different color atoms to different named atoms, excuse me, to reduce his cost by one for each atom that we remove. So essentially, if I was to remove five different named atoms, he would cost one red, which is insane. And then his effect when he enters, blowing up the board, and blanking all abilities first, and then destroying everything on the board. All resonators on the board, all J resonators on the board. That's like you think that's already really good. What more can you ask for? Like, well, on top of that, he also gains all of these different stats. He gets swiftness, flying, pierce. I'm pretty sure he gets precision too, because why not? He doesn't get barrier though, which is what makes the card balanced. If you could,
Balance.
I was using air quotes there. If you couldn't tell,
I got him
because
for you.
this card is absolutely insane. Thank you, appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely insane. One of my favorite cards, honestly. I remember when I first saw this, I was like, this is never gonna happen, right?
Yeah,
And then
right. It was just
we
it's
saw
an
the rest of the deck. We were like,
overcosted
oh, this
big
is.
thing, and you're just like, when have we ever gotten away with playing something like this?
Yeah. Like, when are we
Oh,
ever
we
gonna play a
did.
6-mana 40/40? And it's like, oh, it's a 1-mana 40/40, and we could do this very often. Oh, okay.
With a law of silence, anything is
Yeah,
possible.
exactly. Yeah, we'll get to that one in a second. The second card, the third card in the deck, Tiny Violet. So a lot of people, myself included, were definitely on the train of, oh, we play 4 Tiny Violets, not a question, you
Mhm.
know. And then as after the last GP that I played in, I was trying this Darkness variant of Violet, and I ended up playing Cal in, I think, my third round. I was gonna scoop to him, but he actually ended up beating me. So I was like, good for him. Like, you know, he can ride that momentum into his next round.
Yep.
And he did end up topping, so that was great. But then I ended up facing against Joseph Cuevas, who was like another friend, but you know, we played it out. He ended up beating me. I ended up misplaying in one of the turns, and then in game 2, it was just an absolute blowout. So shout out to both of them for doing well in that event. But so when after watching how Joseph and Gerardo did in that event, I was looking at the list and I noticed that there wasn't anything unique, so to speak, about
Yeah.
the list. I know a lot of people were trying to be innovative, myself included. I was playing a Darkness variant that was playing Dark Alice's Smile to discard key cards from my opponent's hand. I was playing Necro Barrier to prevent enter effects from going off. And you know, as I was playing it, you know, in some matchups, it felt fine when I saw the cards that I needed. But then in other matchups, it was just like, I'm just not drawing any atoms. I'm not drawing this. I'm not drawing that.
Mhm.
And then that's kind of when I was like, you know what? Maybe instead of trying to do all of this other stuff, maybe we just stick to atoms. And
Mhm.
so that's what I did. My first iteration of Violet, I was playing 24 atoms. This time, I decided I wanted to bump it up some more. I'm at
26.
26. And one of the things that got cut was Tiny Violet. So overall, how did I feel about cutting Tiny Violet to 2? Not that bad. I think there was one time where I was like, "Oh, I don't have any Tiny Violets in my deck," but instead I grabbed the blue robot and everything was fine. I got to put my atoms from my RFG back into my grave, and you know, that was just it. I gained my life, and this was against the Violet Mirror, and they were on a Darkness variant. And you know, they ran into the same problem that I was seeing, where you know, they just didn't have like enough atoms to
Mhm.
do what they wanted. I think there was a point where they judgmented, and now they had like 10 cards in hand. I'm like, I'm just dead here. But then, you know, they started discarding cards, started discarding turbulences for swiftness, and I was like, maybe I got a chance.
I'm,
And sure enough, I was able to take it.
I'm kind of
So we started to
noticing
go.
one
Mhm.
of the other things that got taken out from the original was the improved burning robot. Like
Yes.
that was a
So
big like atom regeneration card. Like
yeah, absolutely. So that card, for those that don't know, 2 mana, 3/3. On enter, I can add any number of different atoms from the graveyard to my hand. In long, grindy matchups that you're not dealing with counter spells, I think it could be a phenomenal card. But honestly, like every time that I've played it in the current meta, it just has never felt good. It just has never felt good.
okay.
Okay, I lied. There's maybe one time where it was like, yeah, okay, I have this extra threat that can like chip in damage, but
Yeah.
like I feel like there was like another play that I could have done at the same time that would have been just equally fine. But yeah, like, so me personally, I'm not a huge fan of Burning Robot. I know a lot of people. My buddy Kyron, he's a huge fan of that card. We'll see how
Man.
things we yeah we'll see how things pan out in this next meta. But for me,
Yeah.
yeah, it just wasn't it. It didn't even sideboard it this time. Next card on the list, we got Improved Healing Robot. This card is absolutely insane.
Mhm.
I think honestly, if this card didn't exist, I feel like Violet would be in another air quote more balanced spot. This card allows us to refuel our atoms back into our grave, and not only that, we get to gain life.
Yeah.
So honestly, there's been I
And a
can't even.
hefty chunk of life. Was that
Oh yeah,
300 per atom or?
it's 400 per.
Oh god.
It's nothing to sneeze at. There's been I can't even describe the number of times where I've just been like, attempt to remove 5, play this Bahamut. They're like, do this thing. I'm like, all right, Bahamut's gone. Play the second Bahamut. Do this thing. It's like, all right, that Bahamut's gone. Well, I've just removed 10 atoms. Let me pay 1 blue and gain 4,000 life.
Mm.
That I cannot believe. I cannot begin to tell you how many times that has saved me. Like, not even the fact that I just get to replay more Bahamuts, but just the fact that I have like a 4,000 life point cushion. Like that's
Yeah.
my starting life total. I'm just doubling my life total, and it's crazy. One of my favorite cards in the deck. Definitely good inclusion.
Yeah.
Now the next card, another MVP of the deck, Atomic Turbulence. So this card, when I first saw it, I was
Busted.
yeah, I saw the first two effects. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. You know, deal 10 to the board, and then I saw discard 3 atoms, prevent your opponent from playing the game, and I was just like,
opponent cannot
there's,
play
there's,
spells.
I was like, there's no way this
What?
card's gonna be this card's gonna be balanced
Again.
And so
in
yeah, and
red.
we saw and in red.
What?
You know, we see it in green, we saw it in white, and now red's got it. You know, what about blue and black? When are they gonna get? No, please don't, please. I beg of you, please don't.
Yeah, not black.
But yeah, so
blue, sure.
so
I
card,
give blue whatever. Like
blue needs something. Blue needs something for
blue
sure.
needs everything.
But yeah, so this card, Atomic Turbulence, I get to discard 1 atom to deal 1,000 to target player or J Resonator. I can discard 2 atoms of different names to just deal 10 to
Does it have to be different names?
Yes, it has to be different names. Specifically, has to be different names. I cannot discard 3 of the same name and get the silence effect. Actually, you can't even discard 3 of the same name regardless. So it has to be different. It specifically has to be different names. But yeah, if you discard 2, you get to do the addition. You get to do the 10 to the target, and it'll also deal 10 to everything else. So if I target a resonator, it'll deal 10 to face and every other resonator. If I deal 10 to my opponent's face, it'll deal 10 to every other resonator. And that's both players' boards, by the way. I know a lot of people miss that. So
yeah,
just in case
both
you play this
players'
deck,
board.
it's both players' boards. So if you have tiny valets that are unused, they're gonna die, and you're not gonna get the effect. And then the third one, if I discard 3 atoms, which is probably the most commonly used effect, I get to basically prevent my opponent from playing spells. And spells in this instance is talking about anything that would enter the chase. So chants, resonators, anything. Can't play
all interaction basically kind of goes out the window.
Yep, exactly. So the typical plays, like the most ideal turn 2 would be heart to heart on 1, draw, discard an atom. On their turn, they do something you don't care about, you draw, discard a different named atom. Your turn, you draw, you call a stone, you play Atomic Turbulence, discarding 3 other named atoms. So now you have 5 different named atoms in your grave. They can't play spells. You pay 1 mana, you play Baja, you kill your opponent. You know, that's like the dream scenario. Does it happen often? Not really, no.
Ask Victoria.
Yeah, unless you're Victoria. Which shout out to Victoria for winning the GP. Congrats. Look forward to facing you in Japan. So yeah, like that's like the kind of the meat and potatoes of. Well, okay, so let me talk about this last card, and then that's kind of like the non-atom portion of Violet.
This Firestorm. I think the first. You are the first player to main deck Firestorm. Am I wrong?
In NA tournaments. I know there was a couple of players in EU that were playing. They were playing, what was it? 2 Baja, 2 Burning Robot, 2 Firestorm.
Okay, because 100%. This has always been a sideboard card, great in the mirror, but nobody's mained it.
I am a huge proponent of maining this card. There's been so many games where this card is won. Actually, this past GP, this card I think won me nearly every game. If I'm being honest, I think there was a couple games in matches where a Bahamut would win me the game, but I think more often than not, I think Firestorm actually won me most of my matches. So this card, it's similar to Bahamut in the sense that you can remove different named atoms to reduce its cost. A side note, this card says you can remove any number of atoms.
Yeah.
So if I had 20 atoms in my grave, I can remove all 20.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing that out there. But so this card, remove 5 different names, cost 1, deal 400 damage to your opponent for each atom removed from the game. So
and not
for those of you that are wondering,
though, it was just in your removed area, right?
In my removed area. Yes, thank you for that clarification. So what does this actually mean? So let's say I had 5 different atoms removed, and then I had 5 different named atoms in my grave. I can remove those 5 from my grave, and then after it starts calculating the damage, I'll have 10 different named atoms in my removed area, so I will deal 4,000 damage to my opponent. And for those of you that are wondering, there are currently exactly 10 different named atoms. In the main board, there are 9, and the Magic Stone deck, there is another atom.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that one later. Well, so yeah, I absolutely love Firestorm, and the reason why I think it's such a powerful card is that in the mirror matches, when you don't want your opponent to play a Baja on their turn. Like if you see they have 5 different named atoms, like 5 different named atoms, like you're terrified of that. So
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, you're gonna wanna turbulence, play atomic turbulence preemptively, discard 3 atoms, make it so they can't play any spells this turn. So essentially, they can't play their Baja.
Yep.
Well, if that's the case, then you now have the option to then judgment. Your opponent has discarded essentially 4 cards to make it so you can't play any. But at this point, you judgment, you start discarding your atoms, chip your opponent down, and then on their turn you can cast Firestorm, since Firestorm is instant speed.
Yep.
And like that gets past the whole like, oh, I could have killed you this turn, but since I can't play this Baja, now I can no longer kill you. That's why I absolutely love Firestorm. That's why I cite a second one for the mirror match. Absolutely phenomenal card. I wouldn't trade it for the world, honestly. And yeah, those are kind of like the win conditions there. You have atomic Baja, you have Firestorm, you have your ruler. Those are like your 3 win cons, and your ruler and Firestorm are kind of like hand in hand, so to speak.
Yeah.
If you have like 5 different atoms, I believe you can pump your ruler to 20 if one of them is a Brave Force. And then you discard 5 atoms, then you on your opponent's turn you Firestorm them for the remaining 20. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the win cons there. So now we're gonna dive into the atoms. So the first atom on my list is Brave Force. This card, when it's discarded by a violet effect, or if you play its normal cost red black, then you get to give target J Resonator plus 600 swiftness and barrier. This card is absolutely insane and is the main reason why sometimes your opponent can just die on turn 2 or turn 1 on the draw with very little interaction. Actually, in my winning against, I was playing against the Wolfgang player. I looked at my opening hand. I saw 2 Brave Forces and a Magical Loveliness. I was like, you know what? The other 2 atoms, this one, and a draw atom. I was like, I don't need this last atom. Pitched this last atom. I drew into my 3rd Brave Force. I was like, well, I just have lethal if my opponent taps out. They tapped out, and I was like, all right. Called the 6 Sage Stone, recovered my ruler, judgment, killed him. And
Called the 6 Sage Stone.
My match was probably 10 minutes. It was kind of insane.
It's interesting because this Brave Force aspect here, like I've seen this card played more for the barrier aspect than for the +6. Like that win is like one thing, but like that instant speed barrier is also like a force to be reckoned with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The barrier part is definitely one of the more commonly used.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say it's one of the more commonly used aspects of the card. You remove your 5 atoms, you play your Bahamut, you swing with your Bahamut, they try to kill it, and then you're just activate Valid Effect, draw, discard this Brave Force, give it barrier now.
Yep.
And now you're swinging for 4,600, which more often than not, they're going to die to the 4,000, but, giving it that barrier so that the attack can actually stick, you love it. The next card in the deck, Eternal Wind. I'll go over the ratios a bit later. Just when I kind of go through like the actual cards that we're playing. So we are playing at least one of each atom, just so our Firestorm can deal that 4,000 damage if we need it to. But Eternal Wind, this card was discarded by a violet. I can recover a stone that I control. This card is definitely one of my favorite atoms to open. Just because if I don't hit that heart to heart, that means I can draw. I can pay the 1, draw, discard the Eternal One, recover the stone, and I'll still have a will on my opponent's turn that I can use to activate Valid again, which means that I can dig deeper to find that heart to heart or whatever else that I need to find.
Yep.
And then I'll just move on to the next one because there's not too much else to talk about in terms of combos with that card as of right now. So next card we have the Blue Atom, Everfrost. So this card, when it's discarded by a violet effect, I get to draw a card. So this card is how you end up with like those turns where it's like, I have 10 cards in my hand and I have to move to discard, or your opponent's just like flip and you're just like, how many cards in hand? They're like, 12, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah. When you get to draw discard a Blue Atom and draw another card, that feels so good. I can't even begin to describe how great that feels. It probably is like one of the reasons why I was drawn to this deck, because I just love drawing cards, and being able to go draw, discard, draw, and then draw
Mm-hmm.
for turn is just I love it. I live for it. Next card in the deck, we have Igus. So this card originally I was playing two, I think, in my very first iteration of the deck, and then all these Lycion decks came to fruition, and I was like, all right, yep, we'll slap in the third one, and I even have the fourth one in the sideboard. So this card, you get to draw when it's drawn and discarded. I get to either kill an attacking resonator, which is good for if my opponent's attacking with Baja and they happen to not have the barrier, or if my opponent just has a bunch of additions out, I get to just pop the Lycions on their turn, so that I can go into my turn feeling great that my opponent doesn't have either two Lycions or any Lycions, for that matter. Definitely like it when they don't have any, but sometimes they have two, and you gotta live with it. But yeah, definitely great addition there. I decided to go to 3 Dark Prominence. This is the black red Atom. This was one of the ones that I upped the count on. Basically, I was considering the mirror. If I got turbulenced, I wanted to make sure that if I didn't have my own turbulence to turbulence my opponent back, that I at least had a way to kill Baja. And if they have the Brave Force, they have the Brave Force. Can't really do anything about that. But just wanted to up that count, so up that one up to 3. Gradius was also one that I upped to 3. Again, we were playing more atoms, so we wanted more versatility. This one we upped to 3 because there is a card in Feasting Moojdart called Neverend Dragon that when
Yep.
basically it just gives their board eternal, and then it makes it so my Dark Prominence can't kill anything. This one removes all abilities, and then it can deal 800 damage to it. Neverend is a 1/1 at base stats, so we can kill it. This is basically so that if they try to be greedy, they go for their Prisia plays. They get their 3 Prisias, they get the turtle, the Magnus Guardian Beast, and the two Neverends. If they only have 1 activation, then I can try to bait it out. Use a Turbulence, discarding 2 different named atoms, trying to deal 10 to the board. If they try to activate and they don't have a second activation, then I can activate my ruler ability to draw discard a Gradius. I guess I would need 2 Gradius in this instance, but I can get rid of one of the Neverend Dragons, and then deal with the aftermath at a different time. But basically, it's just a way to get rid of Neverend Dragon.
Yep. No, it's a very good answer to never end. I like that play
and
line.
then it being 1 mana is just like also great, because if they try to Welser, it's like, all right, well, now it's back in my hand, and then I can just draw, discard it. So next up on the list, we decided to do Magical Loveliness. So this card, when discarded, I get to rest a Gia Resonator and deal 400 to my opponent. This one was one that adds to kind of like the burst of the deck. So if you have like your 3 Brave Force and a Magical Loveliness, that's how you get to your 4,000 damage relatively easier, I guess you could say. And then another reason why I was playing more of this over White Garden, which White Garden allows me to gain 1,000 life when discarded, is because this was also another way to reduce the damage taken by Neverends. So Neverends, they can become 15/15s if they have if they meet the requirements, and that's a lot of damage I just don't want to be taking. So instead of preventing 1,000 damage of it, I'd rather just take none. So draw, discard it, tap it down. Now I'm not taking any damage from the Neverend Dragon, and they're taking 400 damage. Additionally, it helps to preemptively remove blockers. So like say I'm Judgment and I see they have Neverend Dragons that are blockers, I can discard it for Violence Effect, tap down the Neverend Dragon, get my buff, and then proceed to either use a Gradius for the second one to push that damage through.
Yeah.
And then Void. this one was for the mirror match. While I was playing again the White Garden. Just being able to cast it to remove your opponent's grave, and then have the draw discard available still, just felt great. And so this was one of the ones that I would want to see more in the mirror match over White Garden in game one. Game two, I can set up some other stuff that I don't necessarily need to add in to up the atom count essentially. Like, so for example, I guess I don't necessarily need 3, so I can change one of those for another White Garden, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And then last but not least, White Garden, gain 1,000 life. It's pretty good. It's an atom. Toss it in the deck.
Yep.
Stones. These are kind of straightforward. At least, okay, so I guess the 6 Sage Stone, fairly straightforward. When it comes into play, get to recover my ruler. We play 4 of it just so that we have those turns that we can threaten. Turn 2, call 6 Sage Stone, recover my ruler. Now I can Judgment. And sometimes that's just necessary. Also, it being 5 color, kind of nice, but can be sometimes a pain.
Yeah, having to play those colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can sometimes be a pain when you're forced to like preemptively tap them to produce the will.
But I mean, this deck
it's
doesn't do a lot with its will during your opponent's turn anyway, right? So like
in game 1, typically no. Game 2, I have some cards in there that I'd prefer to like interact with, but sometimes I can just play them at main timing. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, so 6 Sage Stone, play 4 of it. That's just fine. Atom Stone, I'm playing 3 only because I am playing a Tech Stone in here that I fell in love with the first time I played it. Didn't play it the second time, and then kind of missed it, so then I just put it back in. I'm playing 2
we're gonna have to
Heartscore.
talk about that.
We'll talk about that one. Playing 2 Heartscore. I'm playing 2 because I really liked having blue early. Because there were some times where like your opponent would void your graveyard, and then if you just had the Mariabella in RFG and the Bahamut in hand, like you just pay 2, pay a blue and 1, play the Mariabella from exile because she can do that. By the way, search on enter, she searches for a 1-cost machine. Well, the tiny robot, the improved healing robot's a blue, is a 1-cost machine. Comes into play, gets to put my graveyard, put my exile into my graveyard, gain a bunch of life. After that, I have priority again, so they can't remove my graveyard again, so that I can just remove 5 different named atoms and then play my Baja. So absolutely wanted to be able to have more opportunities to do that, so I decided to go with 2 Heartscore. And then last but not least, my favorite stone, Fiery Stone of Ragnarok. Absolutely love this stone. I don't think there was any times where this actually screwed me in the GP. I'm trying to think. I guess there was one turn where it was like it would have been nice if it was recovered, but it didn't actually matter. Yeah. More often than not, I was more happy to see it than I wasn't. So I absolutely love this stone. I'll probably continue to play this going forward, if I'm being honest.
All right. Yeah. In all decks or in Violet?
In Violet. There will be some decks where if they can cheat mana in some way, shape, or form, I will play this stone. Absolutely. Wolfgang being one of them. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
So the effect of the stone, for those who don't know, so it does enter play tapped if your ruler is not Ragnarok. So in this case, it will enter tapped for me. But whenever I would call a stone, as long as the stone is in my stone area, I no longer have to tap my ruler. So this means if I hit this on turn 1, yes, I'm skipping my turn 1, but for the rest of the game, I no longer have to tap to call a stone. That means I will have my turn 2 flip, I will have my turn 3 flip, I will have my turn 4 flip, but in addition to that, I will also be calling a stone while this is happening. So I no longer have to like worry about like, do I call a stone here? Do I flip? I can do both. Just call a stone, do my play. All right, I can flip here.
Yeah.
And then go for lethal with that. So I absolutely love this stone. And it's another 5-color rock, so that also helps when trying to play stuff from my sideboard. Also makes it so that my 6 Sage Stones are now always live, which was another big boon for this stone.
Not
having to in the grindier games of Feith Mood when they're trying to, or I guess probably Feith Almaris when they're trying to grind me out. Now I can just keep calling stones. I no longer have to tap my ruler, so my 6 Sage Stones will always be 5-color stones, since I need to have a recovered ruler for them to produce any color.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So moving into the sideboard, got. Let's see. I guess I could talk about my sideboard choices. So there was two decks that I was preparing for this event. I was preparing for Thief Mooge, and Violet. So basically, the boogeyman of the format and the mirror match. So I have it broken down into two separate, I guess, kind of two separate sideboard options.
Hmm.
So the first one for Thief Mooge, my sideboard would be two Exorcist Mage, two Lightning Rod Mermaid, two Memory of Disappearance, the fourth Baja, the fourth Aegis, and 4, 6, 8. I think there was one more that I did.
Wow, 9 cards.
Sometimes the healing robot. Sometimes, depending on what game we were going to. If we were going into a sudden death, I was basically siding in everything that dealt damage and everything that healed. So Firestorm was coming in, the White Garden, the healing robot was coming in, the fourth Baja. Basically, any way to just kill my opponent faster than than the 3 turns that I had. But yeah, so yeah, the 2, 4, 6, 8 cards was what I was citing in for Thief Mooge. The Exorcist Mage, this card was basically to make it so that when they played Priscia, they couldn't search their deck. Well, I guess they could search it and fail to find, but
Yeah.
basically it makes it so that I wouldn't.
Nothing's getting cheated in.
Right, yeah. Basically, they'll just fail to find their deck, so that they don't lose anything. But I'm okay with that because now they only have a 7/7 and not like 6,000 worth of stats on board.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. Like in this Violet, in Violet, like it feels like you're cheating, right?
Oh,
but
absolutely.
you're actually technically not cheating anything in, right? It's all just reduced cost and very out of color. But
yeah, exactly. Yep.
but it's literally only Mariabella that's ever gonna get punished by the Exorcist. So like, Exorcist is a great play in here. The only downside that I saw to anybody playing Exorcist is not hitting white early, because then you've got like a rough. You've got a card in your hand that's supposed to be answering shit early, but then it's also clogging it up because it's not an Atom. It's not doing so. Like, you called out 9 cards. You called out 9 cards that weren't Atoms. Like, are you taking out Atoms to like do that to go into the Mooge Thief?
So I'm taking out. I believe
Or sorry, Aegis is an Atom. So 7 non-Atoms.
I think I got it down to taking out 4 Atoms, so I'd still be at 22 post side.
Okay, so still over 50% of the deck Atoms.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. That was my another reason why I decided to up the Atom count to 26 was so that I could side all these cards that I wanted to and still have above 50%. Because I tried with 20 Atoms. There were still many times where I would just like draw hands of just non-Atoms, and I was just not feeling it. So I tried upping it up some more, and honestly, I didn't even face Thief Mooge, so I couldn't tell you how well the strategy goes. But the concept was there. Concept was definitely there.
I like the Memory of Disappearance. I really do. I think that was one of the things that we noticed. Like, watching the top cut from Caseyville, we noticed that like there's a finite amount of Bahamut's. And there was nothing in that meta, right? There was nothing in that deck that ever recirculated Bahamut's. So, like, 2 Memory of Disappearance. That's a good call. That was a really good call.
Yep. Yeah, that was kind of like my nod to Brandon Bremont and Ryan Miles playing the Beatsing Mooge Dart list that was playing Suyas, ripping the Baja from hand. After watching that game where Joseph Cuevas versus Brandon Bremont in finals, where I saw one Bahamut go to the bottom of the deck, the second Bahamut that was in hand got eaten, and then now it's just like, all right, well, one's like 2 from the bottom. You're gonna draw the other one at some point, but now it's like that one's probably gonna get countered or something because if they don't have the 13, they have the feasting flip, which she's just gonna counter the Bahamut. So it's like, oh geez, all right, maybe I do need more Bahamuts, and that's why I also decided to add the 4th one in.
Yeah,
just as a nod to that list. I wasn't sure
3
if
to 6
playing it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you can answer 2 Bahamut, how about 6?
How about 6?
But yeah, so that was the game plan for that. Didn't run into Fiethmooj in Swiss, and then played against Cal. I was going to play against Cal in top 8, but I wanted my buddy to get the invite, so I swooped him up
Operation
to.
Get Cal invite.
Yeah, yeah.
That
So
was really good. It was smooth, very smooth.
yeah,
Well
yeah,
done.
it was definitely smooth event. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, the second part of the reason why I was running Exorcist Mage was Welzer. Welzer is so annoying. Because
Yes.
it's 1 mana, counter, put your Baja back in your hand. It's like, well, I paid 5 atoms for this, so I probably can't, do this unless I play another card like Healing Robot. So being able to put this down and say you have to answer this before you can attempt to Baja my Welzer,
Yep.
my attempt to Welzer my Bajas, just felt so good.
Yep.
But again, unless you hit the white sources, it felt so bad. So definitely a double-edged sword there,
Yep.
in that regard. But
Yeah,
all in all,
very
I'd
out of
keep running it.
color. Very out of
Yeah,
color,
yeah,
but
yep,
worth
yeah.
it when
Unfortunate.
it works.
Oh yeah, when it works, it works.
Hmm.
And you probably see that in game. I think it's game 3 of that finals. If you go check out that video on Jeremy's stream. But that, yeah, when he had that board of Exorcist Mage and Tiny Valets, I was like, oh, there's no way he loses. But then, you know, you
Yep.
miscount one card, and then suddenly you're instead of having 2 Bajas in hand, you only got one, and they have a counter for the one. So
Yep.
unfortunate there, but it is what it is. But yeah, Lightning Rod Mermaid is a nod to Flame of Outer Worlds. Basically, you play this early, and then also it just keeps your Tiny Valets alive.
Yeah.
It keeps your Tiny Valet alive, keeps your Exorcist Mage alive. Makes it just super awkward to do stuff. You know, now they
Does
have to
it
expand more
also
resources.
this is whenever your opponent, right? So like I
Yes,
heard that this also eats Brave Forces.
yes,
Cool.
yes, she does.
Cool.
Yep. So it's very annoying in the mirror when you play that on one, your opponent's like, well, I can Judgment, but I immediately lose this Brave Force.
Yeah.
And also for like Dark Prominences, like you have to target that. You can't target the Baja.
Yeah.
And then Turbulence, like you have to target her. So she'll uh, gain barrier, not take 10 damage. And then, if you don't remove it from the board that turn, which it has barrier now, like it's gonna be there for the following turn. So it gets super weird.
Yeah,
Trying to answer
it's
that card in
sticky.
Violet.
It's sticky.
Yeah, it's very sticky. So definitely a great card. I guess I got to give a shout out to Kyron for that one because this was his card. This was his card for forever and a day. He was like, "Oh, you play this card, it's gonna be so insane." I was like, "I don't know," but it was. It was. I can't say anything about that.
Perfect.
But yeah, the memory in the Baja, just play more Baja.
Yeah.
That was
Perfect.
that, plain and simple. The Igus, they're playing additions. We want to remove the additions.
Yeah.
Simple. Moving into the sideboard for the mirror match, I have 2 Surging Lightning. I have another Void. This is the third Void. Second White Garden. Second Healing Robot. Firestorm, and I have a Tiny Violet in the sideboard. She
Just for
I forgot
looks.
what she was. I forgot why she was there. Oh, if I ended up facing like a matchup that just felt kind of grindy, like I don't know, I didn't know what matchup it would be, but just like if it was like trying to discard my entire hand, just tossing the third Tiny Violet, you know, kind of deal. More often than not, you'd be beating the
Sounds
deck
like
anyways.
separation anxiety from cutting so many tiny violets in your main.
Honestly, yeah. I did
You're
like
like, I
in
need
my
my
in my head
doll.
in my head it seemed right, but like in my heart I was just like I can't cut Tiny. I can't.
You're like, I'll bring you along, but I just won't play with you.
Exactly.
You
That
can
that was
stay
that was
here
basically it.
forever.
Yep. Yep. She was my cheerleader from the sideboard. But yeah, it was basically those 6 cards that I sided in for the mirror match. Surging
Perfect.
Lightning. Um, when there's nothing else on board, um, it's basically just a 1 mana kill spell.
Yeah,
They try to
and
go for an early flip, and it gets around
yeah.
barrier too, since it destroys
Mm-hmm.
since it destroys
Yep.
randomly. So they go for like the Brave Forces. They got all this stuff. They discard their entire hand and just like 1 blue, Surging Lightning. You only control Violet, so kill your Violet,
Yeah,
and then
which
you just don't take that damage.
to give the audience some perspective here, these Maribellas are resonators, but like we said, they're not really being used. So like, there's 3 Bahamets, 2 Tiny
Yep.
Violets, and this healing robot, and that's it.
Yep.
So like,
Yeah.
this deck doesn't run a wide board at all. It's very much oftentimes just one thing on the board. So
Yep. And more
very
often than
good
not,
tech card for the mirror.
yeah. And more often than not, like if there is something else on the board, it's probably something that a turbulence discarding 2 atoms can deal with more
Yeah,
often than not.
yeah, or
So
a Gradius, or
yeah.
anything really, because it's probably a tiny violet.
Yep. Yeah. So you kind of like force your opponent into this play line sometimes. Like so they say they have the like we go back to that scenario that I mentioned the first time. You turbulence or you preemptively turbulence discarding 3 atoms, so they can't play their Baja because they have 5
Mhm,
atoms of grace. Like,
mhm.
all right, well, fine, I'll just judgment. It's like, well, you can't play any spells, so only your violets on board because I probably wiped out everything else that was on board, including my board. Because Surging Lightning
Because it
will
does hit your
include
own board.
your
Yep,
own board, which is very very
relevant.
important. It can change it from 100% to a 50-50 really quick, and you don't want to lose that 50-50. Um,
Did you ever
and
have to
so,
cast this with uncertainty?
there was one time where I had the option to do so, um, but I wasn't gonna die, so I decided not to.
That a boy.
Um, but yeah, there was like 5 things on board. I was like, oh well, okay, I guess I just won't, including one of my own things. And like the worst part was he had discarded a magical loveliness to tap down my Mariabella instead of killing it. So I was like, oh, okay, that was probably the worst possible scenario. But that was the turn. He couldn't kill me, so I was just like, all right, we got a chance. And then I ended up drawing the second Surging Lightning. I was like, I don't need this right now. But yeah, no, there was no other times. There's a time where there was a Bahamut that was coming in to kill me. Um, but when he entered combat, I Gradiused it. I kind of wanted to bait out more things.
Yeah.
Didn't have the Brave Force, so I was like, all right, cool. I drew for turn, and I was like, all right, Surging Lightning, get that off my board now.
Get it. Go.
But yeah, and then yeah, Void. Just want more voids. Prevent
Yeah,
your opponent
removing the
from like
grave.
playing.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
prevent your opponent from playing Baja. I mean, there will be those times where you try to do that, and then they just have the healing robot anyways, and
Or you get
then
firestormed.
yeah, or you get Firestorm. I mean, but you wanna just have those atoms that are like more useful than say like an Aegis.
Yeah.
Or let's see what else.
Yeah, I guess not so much
Another
in the.
Eternal Wind. Eternal Wind in this matchup isn't as good as the other atoms. So
Yeah,
like you swap those out for like more relevant atoms in certain scenarios, and then kind of just do your thing.
not bad.
And also you like increase the number of different named atoms. Like so, the White Garden going to 2. That means you're more likely to hit a 10 atom Firestorm. I
Hmm.
actually did. Actually no, I didn't hit 10. I hit 9 and 8. 8 I would hit consistently. 9 was just happened to be I had the stone as well, so I was like, all right, cool. Banish the stone, draw a card,
Perfect.
hit you for 36. Um,
No, I'm
but yeah,
glad.
that's
I'm glad you
that's
played
that's that.
Violet as much as you did.
Yeah,
I'm
I definitely enjoyed
glad
playing it.
because it's nice in the guild having diversity, and
Mhm.
everybody playing their different things, and like you consistently put some time into this. You started here, you went somewhere else, and then you came back to here, and like, but it's been tweaked. Like, you didn't sleeve up the same deck in 3 tournaments. You
Nope.
sleeved up the same shell, but like the techs
Yeah.
are definitely different. But
Yeah, we went a little different each time. I would say this is more comparable to the first iteration of the list.
mm-hmm.
I think it's actually might be like 2 cards different.
Mm,
No, it's a bit more than 2 cards different. With the tiny valves and the extra dark
yeah,
prominence and the extra Aegis, but it's close. It's very close to the
yeah.
first iteration. And we're at 40 cards. Yay!
That a boy. Awesome,
Very
Derek. Well,
very optimistic 40 cards.
congratulations, dude.
Yeah, appreciate
You
it.
did you did awesome, and it was awesome to see 3 for 3 rogues in the top, and Operation Get Cal. The invite went through Swiss perfectly, and
And yep,
and and that
it's just
was
got some finals.
it was uh
So
it was absolutely perfect. So congratulations on your top. Congratulations on all your experience. Well, Violet, we'll see if she shows up in the next meta.
we'll see.
Yeah, we will
See,
see.
I got my list ready, so we'll see if she makes it to GP Minnesota.
All right, my friend. Well, Thank you very much for stopping by the Rogues Guild. Thank you for checking out. If you're interested in Force of Will, if you have any questions about Force of Will, please reach out to us. Our main social media outlet is Twitch. We do Twitch streams all the time, so search for the Rogues Guild in Twitch. We will have deck profile videos on Triple Sleeve, and we have a private Discord. If you're interested in coming in, please reach out to us. But thank you very much for stopping by, and we'll see you guys next time. GG.